What this course is all about is not to teach you computer in depth, just to teach you the fundamentals of computer. The part of the material I want to take today or tonight is the history of computer, brief history of computer, or the historical overview of the computer. That's what we are interested in tonight, and I want you to pay attention. This is a major focus during the exam. A lot of questions come out from this part in your exam, so it's very good you know it. Now, without wasting much of our time, when we are talking about the history of computer, you have to know that the computer you are using today, the mobile phone you are using today, or this iPhone, Android that you are using today, they didn't just start like that. The beginning of phones started with when they were using all those land phone that they use wire to connect. You see, it has its own wire, except the cable they are using for it. It has pole, as the way they are connecting light. NEPA is connecting light to your house. That was how they were connecting it then, using cables. Look at how stressful it was then. Little by little, they started creating the ones they call handsets, button phone then, small. That was when they were doing Symbian phone, all those Motorola and also. So they all have history. And look at what you're now using today. We call them smartphones. Whether iOS, which is your iPhone, or Android, anyone you're using is a smartphone today. So if you give birth to someone now, and the child grows and see Android, it's possible the child will not know that it is not Android they started with. You understand? A child that was given birth to in 2005 now, or 2005 is going to somebody that you give birth to maybe 2010. The only phone that kind of child will know is all this iPhone, whatever. You understand? So they don't even know that the history of phones did not start from iPhone. They don't start from Android. The same thing with the system. That's what we are here to do tonight. It's not the system, this computer you are using today that you are now having laptop, palm top, even desktop and the rest of them. They didn't just start from this thing you are using. It has generations. The first generation, this was the best of them they were able to do. But they saw that there were limitations. So they are, human beings are only looking for better offer. That is why most things you see version 1, version 1.1, version 2, version 2.1. You see that everything is always improving. Because when you do something, for instance, even you as a mass comm student, for instance, now, if you produce a book today based on the available knowledge or things that are happening in this current world, and tomorrow something happened differently from what is generally believed when you wrote that book, you may decide to write another edition of that book to update the knowledge that, since this thing is possible, or since this new thing has happened, we need to embrace the new knowledge. So you see that you now call that first one you've written as first edition. Second edition will now update the knowledge that the book is passing. That's the same thing with what the system is. When they were using abacus and the rest of them in the first generation of computers, that was the highest knowledge they had then. Their knowledge then, the best it can produce was what the gadgets they were using in the first generation. But when they were entering the second generation, people of the second generation were not satisfied. Now we have more things to do. Let me say civilization is coming in. We're now seeing the new things we can use the computer to do. That is posing us new challenges, new questions, and those questions need answers. So some people decided to start, okay, since we already have this on ground, even though it's not efficient, let's upscale it. Let's upgrade it into something else. Let's use more mathematical models. Let's use more, programming science that we can use to bring something better. That was how they translated from first generation to second generation. Second generation was not okay. You understand? The more the world is advancing, the more we are seeing more realities and possible things we can do, more solutions we can provide, which the gadgets produced in previous generation cannot solve. These are generations that are saying 21st century, 21st century. By the time we are done, everybody is dead now. The new generation, all this Gen Z, or what are they calling them? By the time we enter 22nd generation, all these computers we are using now that we're thinking we are firing. Look at how this system is firing. They will become obsolete. That means new ones would have come by then that will be very, even now we have so many systems that they can behave exactly like human beings. You understand? They are not just popular yet. So by doing their own generation, those are the common laptops they will be using, common system they will be using then. So the more the world is advancing, the more the need to get new versions of what we are using before. Just look around you, study around you, you see that every company, every product, they're always trying to give you another taste, another version of what they've produced before. Based on what is happening currently, the needs of people they are seeing. Okay, this was what we produced before. This was what it was solving. But now we are not saying that there are now more needs that people want to be, met, that people like more challenges that people are facing that they will need solution to. So let's add this to our product. So that is what I'm just giving you that as an introduction to the course, that everything you are using today did not just start the way it is. They always have first version of them, second version, upgraded version, and so on and so forth. The same with the computer. So the major things we want to talk about here today is on the generations of computer. First of all, after this class, you should be able to know how many generations of computer we have, what is the main things used in the first generation, the main things used in the second generation to power them, to make them work effectively. Then the third generation, the fourth generation, and the fifth generation. Most importantly, I want you to know what they use in first generation and fifth generation, because those are the things they dwell on in the exam. But let's not waste time. A complete history of computing would include, I hope people are still with me. Sorry, I'm just talking to myself. Are you guys here? Can we write down?
Yes, sir.
I'm not talking too fast though. Is it okay? The pace okay? All right, let's do this. I need someone to read this paragraph for me, for us rather. So somebody should read this paragraph. Grace, read this paragraph for us slowly. Don't need to rush it. We have to pick something there. We want to pick something there, so read it slowly.
Okay, sir. A brief history of computer technology. A complete history of computing would include a multitude of diverse devices, such as the ancient Chinese abacus, the charcoal loom, which is 1805, and Charles Babbage analytical engine in 1834. It will also include discussion of mechanical, analogic, and digital computing architectures. As late as the 1960s, mechanical devices such as the merchant calculator still found widespread application in science and engineering. During the early days of electronic computing devices, there was much discussion about the relative merit of analog versus digital computers. In fact, as late as the 1960s, analog computers were routinely used to solve systems of finite difference equations arising in oil reservoir.
Yes. So, thank you for that. That's something important you need to pick here. The machine, the early machine, or the man, sorry, what am I saying? The machine that was produced by Charles Babbage during the early days of computing was the analytical engine. There is a question in the question bank on this statement. Is in OBJ. So when you meet this question in the exam, be very careful. The answer is not abacus, it's analytical engine. That was what Charles Babbage, and his team then worked on in the early days of computing. Then mechanical devices such as the merchant calculator, they started as early as 1960s. That is in the 1960s. That was when we started having like calculators. But then what was invoked then was analog. I know some of you understand what we mean by analog. During the time we were using stove, let me just do something for example. During the time we were using stove to cook, or okay, no, stove is somehow still modern. Let me use let's say during the time they were using charcoal and copot, I think it's copot they call it, right? To cook. That time it was or fire, thank God. I even forgotten that there is something called firewood. So during the time they were using firewood to cook, that is analog age. The method of using firewood to cook can be referred to as analog. Now that you use electric this thing, that you will time it on its own, you can put your food on, you can time, okay, this food is supposed to boil for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, off yourself. That is digital. The world is not digital. You don't need to stress yourself. I don't know if you guys have that electric cooker in your house. That's one that you can time. Like, okay, you want to just warm your soup, your stew, or whatever. You don't need to panic that this thing will burn. Just set it 5 minutes. After 5 minutes on its own, it will off itself. So that is digital and analog. Analog is one you need to, like when they were using all those radio that you would turn and turn and turn to get station and wind. Now station, to get station on radio, you just know your radio, press one button. That is all. Search for stations on its own and even save them for you. So that is the difference between analog and digital. So let's say in the end, digital computing devices prove to have the power, economics, and scalability necessary to deal with large-scale computations. Analog is very limited. Who is that? Please mute yourself, Joe. Please. Benedicta, mute yourself. So, analog is very hard to operate, and also, let me just say it's tedious. And then it can carry very large, what do you call it now? Workload. Cannot carry large workload. It will just crash. It's not all this digital that you just press numbers inside is working on. Those one can handle more complex work. Now, this is not where we are going to. Most importantly, today I want to stress on the generations of computer we have. Please, you have to note the years. Very important. And they are very simple to note. So let's do something very fast. Just know that the first generation starts from 1940. Just bear it in mind like that. Let's just say 1940 or in the let's just say in the 1930s. Don't just ignore all this last digit that is there. This one is saying 1937, 1953. Just know that when we start talking about, when we start to talk about the generations of computer, the first year is in the 1930s. Just put that, once you register that one in mind, it's very easy for you to move along the sequence of the generations. So register this digit in your mind, this year in your mind, 1930s. The main thing is 1930. No, the thing is they can't get the accurate figure. This 1937 is just, they just have to put something down, but we can just say in the 1930s. You understand? So, and the last one, let's go to the fifth generation. Let's go to the 5th generation. Okay, the 6th generation is now 1990 to this our current year that we are. We are in the 6th generation of computer now. Very soon, I think they're already starting 7th very soon. So 6th generation from 1990 to this current date. We are going to move along little by little. I just want to put something, the beginning and the end. The first is in the 1930s. It's even better you put 1937, but you know that 1937 can also be referred to as 1930s. That means it can be 1931, 32, 33, but we shall know it's 1930s. The last generation, not the last, but the current generation is now from 1990 down to this our 2026 that we are, and it continues before they move to 7th generation very soon. Now, let's see our 1st generation. What happened in the 1st generation? Now, what are the features of the computers that they use in the 1st generation? There are some important things you have to pick here. You don't need to pick everything written here, but you need to know something about 1st generation computers. They were very large. Very large. Now, the characters of 1st generation computers, one of it is that they are very large. The memory that they were using them, or we can call it the switch that they were using them, is the vacuum tubes. Let everybody say that. The electronic switch or switches that are being used or that was used in the 1st generation are called vacuum tubes. Yes, I don't want you guys to make noise. Just say it.
Vacuum tubes.
It's only Grace that is in the class.
Vacuum tube.
Those were now these vacuum tubes.
Vacuum tube.
It's okay. They serve as switches then, and also as a memory that the 1st generation computer used then. Vacuum tubes. It's like drum, very big drum. That is where all this one now that you are now using all this SD memory card that you just punch into your phone. That is very tiny thing now. It started as drum, big drum. That is how memory card was then. That was memory, 1st generation computer, very big drum. Then the computer itself is very big. It used to occupy in fact, if you put it in a room, it occupies the whole room. That was the size of the 1st generation computer. Very big. The memory or the switches that they used for it then was were vacuum tubes. Then you should understand the nature of operation then in the 1st generation. These are places they pick questions. I'm just dwelling on the part they pick questions from. The method of operation in the 1st generation was open and close. This is very important too. These are things they test you in the exam. You see this open and close, vacuum tubes, understand, and the size of the computer, which is very large. Those are important things you have to remember about 1st generation. And the year that they use 1st generation computer in the 1930s to the 1950s. It's not by force. Remember this 7 and this 53. Once you know that from 1937 down to 1950, from the 1930s, 1950s, that is the 1st generation of computer. Very important. Please, in this 1st generation, you have to jot down this. The 1st generation of computer took place in the 1930s to the 1953. Let's be precise, 1937 to 1953, according to this course material. You may see something else in any other place, but this course material is dwelling on 1937 to 1953, 1st generation of computers. They use vacuum tubes as switches. That's another thing you should jot down. Another thing is that the method used in operation then, or in operating the system, there was open and close method. Once you know these 3 things, you are good to go in 1st generation. It happened or it occurred in 1937 to 1953 or in the 1930s to 1950s. It uses vacuum tubes as switches, and the method used then was open and close method. That is all you need to know. And I think this statement is also very important. The earliest attempt to build an electronic computer was by JV, Atanasov, a professor of physics and mathematics in Iowa State University, I think in 1937. This statement is very important. It's a question on its own in the exam. They normally cut out the name of this man, this Atanasov, and sometimes they cut out 1937. So you should not play with this statement. It's very important. If you can cram it, cram it. Just so that when we are talking about electronic computer, it started by this man, and he made that attempt in 1937. That is why the first generation of computer seems to start from 1930s, 1937, because that was when we were able to come up with the first electronic computer. And it happened in 1937 by the professor of physics and mathematics in Iowa State. Now, that is enough. That is enough. That is enough. So far, we talked about the year that first generation occurred, 1937 to 1953. The switches they used then, vacuum tubes, the method used then, open and close. And the first attempt for electronic computer in 1937 was by a professor of mathematics and physics in Iowa State. And the name of the man is JV Atanasov. So please bear that in mind. It's very important. I don't know if we should move to now the the Colossus play an important role. This is another machine that after that of Atanasov, that was the first attempt of electronic computers in 1937. Another person tried, to come up with another electronic machine that behaved like another computer in 1943. That is how many years from that of Atanasov? How many years from 1937 to 1943?
6 years.
You guys don't know math. So nobody knows how many years from 1937 to 1940.
15 years. 15 years.
37 to 43.
That's 6 years.
15
6 years. 6 years.
15 ke.
That's
So
that was a mistake. That was a mistake.
Me now. So 6 years, fine. It means that Atanasov's electronic device, which he, maybe you should say create or produce them, served the people for 6 years until somebody thought of something else, which is Alan Turing. He designed something he called Colossus, and that Colossus was used in 1943 in the military, especially the British military, and it was basically of help during the World War II. That was the computer or the electronic device or machine that he created then. He created it purposely for the military, and that was in 1943. It was helpful in World War II. Now, the first general purpose programmable electronic computer was the electronic numerical integrator and computer, ENIAC. Please, we need to say this together. You need to know the meaning of ENIAC, electronic numerical integrator and computer. This is a very notorious question in your exam. In fact, there was a year they repeated it up to 15 times in the same course, sorry, in the same exam. I know there was an error that year, but this same question, this same abbreviation was repeated in OBJ for 15 times. Bonus for people that know it, because people will see it. So, electronic numerical integrator and computer. That is the meaning of ENIAC. So let everybody say it together like 3 times. Yes. We don't have time. Oh.
Electronic numerical integrator and computer.
One more time.
Electronic numerical integrator and computer.
Let's say the last time.
Electronic numerical integrator and computer.
All right. So the person that made that attempt was Presper Eckert and John V. Macaulay at the University of Pennsylvania. Sorry. Now, all you need to know here is the full meaning of ENIAC. And what is ENIAC? The first general purpose programmable electronic computer. It was programmable. Like it's a computer that they can program, not just an electronic machine. This one now is programmable. So what is the difference between ENIAC and Colossus? And what was the one produced by Anatasov? What was his own design? What did he design then? Did they mention the name of his computer? Okay, he made an attempt just to build an electronic computer. Okay, so the difference between the work of J.V. Anatasov and Alan Turing and Presper Eckert and then John V. Macaulay. The difference between their job is that of the combination of these two guys is programmable. Their own is not just electronic computer, but it is programmable. The others, their own, like this Alan Turing, his own is just an electronic machine. The same with that of Anatasov. Now, okay, let's see. When they built this ENIAC, okay, it was completed in 1945. So when you're asking the exam, which computer was completed in 1945, that was the ENIAC. This, don't forget, please. Now, it was used for the design of the hydrogen bomb. In case you are asking the exam, which of the computer was used for the design of the hydrogen bomb in 1955? That is the ENIAC still. So all the rest are just story. Just what the full meaning of that ENIAC. That is all. Now, second generation, we will not be able to complete this class tonight. Maybe when next you have it, you let me know, so we'll continue. I want to take you this generation of computer because it's very important. Now, the major things you should remember in, okay, I think I should not rush you. I don't do it like this. The major thing you should remember in first generation computer is that that generation occurred between the year 1937 and 1953. Fine. And the switches that generation used to power their computer then was vacuum tubes. It also serves as a memory, very large, like a drum. And then that computer, or should we say machine, or sorry, not computer, the generation, we are talking about a generation now, it uses a method of open and close. We have some generation that they use only the open. We have some that use only the close, but first generation use open and close. Fine. So, and there are some notable achievements in that generation. That was the generation that J.V. Anatasov attempted an electronic machine in 1937. And another thing that happened then was Colossus, which was used in the military, designed by another notable person, Alan Turing. That one was designed, I think, is it that 1945 or so, but it was also during the first generation that he designed Colossus. And then finally, some notable scientists, two of them, they combined efforts together and they created the ENIAC. And what is the full meaning of ENIAC?
Electronic, numerical, integrator, and
Integrator
computer.
and okay, fine. Now, another thing we failed to mention is the EDVAC. The EDVAC was just like an advancement of the ENIAC. So, and quite a lot of people worked on that one. I can't talk on EDVAC tonight. So I want about at least 4 people to summarize the class. 1 minute. Yes. Who is the first person? What we've done tonight. I need at least 4. We have just 4 minutes left, so I want 4 people to summarize what we've done. Timothy, Daniel, you are the first person. The fast, we have just 1 minute or 30 seconds. Just summarize all we have done tonight. Timothy, Daniel, not available. Esther. Is it only Grace that is in class? We have less than 4 minutes now. Okay, Grace, go on. Just go straight. We don't have time.
Okay. We started with the introduction of how computer come to stay. We talked about the first generation, which was the vacuum that contains vacuum, which is the switch that occupies space, and also the method they use is open and close method. Then we also look at the second generation where we talk about the ENIAC, which was introduced by Pascal. About the year, but the first one is from 1830 to 1950.
All right. Who is the second person that wants to talk? Is Joy in the meeting? Joy Laura.
Yes.
All right. So summarize. You'll be the last speaker, I think.
I just joined now.
And the class just ended. No, you watch the recording. So who was in the class? This Timothy, Daniel, you started with us, but you seem not to want to talk now. I don't know. Zoom user too. You've been here for a long time. Likewise, Esther. If you guys are not summarizing, I will now leave you guys to go and continue your. We what?
Okay, you talked about the earliest attempt to build an electronic computer, which was by J.V. Atanaso. He was a professor of ENIAC, the first general purpose programmable electronic computer, and the full meaning is electronic numerical integrator and computer. It was built by J. Presper. Yes, sir, that's all, sir.
All right, thank you all. You guys may continue your class now, your group. See you next week.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.